mixing and code switching. Then we will look at dissonance in communication. So under dissonance, we'll look at the causes and the effects of dissonance in communication. And then lastly, we're going to briefly look at the theory of dissonance. Okay, so I want to begin with trying to find out what a code is, because we need to understand what a code is for us to really look at code mixing and code switching. Okay, so a code. What is a code? When someone talks about a code, what comes to your mind? You know, we know that in this fast-paced world that social media has taken over, e-banking and everything, you hear people talking about codes. Give me the code and all that. So a code is a system of sounds, symbols, or signs used by a group of people to communicate with one another. So you see that code is a means of communication. So it's not just about numbers, but it has to do with signs and symbols and, you know, the sounds of communication that we make use of. And so a code can be referred to as language, the different languages that we use. So whatever code you use and you are able to communicate, it becomes a language. And so that is what a code is. And so we are talking about code mixing and code switching. So what is code mixing? So code mixing simply is when a person uses or makes use of two different languages in a discourse, especially in a sentence. African people who live in such communities. So in a multilingual society like Nigeria, where we have over 500 different languages, and at least most of us can speak English and one other language, for instance, English and Yoruba. So Yoruba is the first language that most speakers have. That is their mother tongue, the first language that they learned growing up. And then they went to school, and then in school they were introduced to English language, or on the streets, or with neighbors, and so on. So they now know two languages.
Hello, ma'am.
And so,
hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Please, hello, ma'am. Mr. Agelaga, please pardon me to have interrupted you like that. I want to be sure that what I did during the week was intact. Now, students, are you online? Yes, I want responses from students. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Okay, just unmute and talk so that we will know that you are participating in this online series. Okay, I think that's okay. So when it is time for questions, we'll ask you to unmute your mic and talk and ask your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now you can mute your mic so that the lecturer can go on, so that you can all learn from my experience. Thank you.
Okay. All right then. Okay, so you're welcome once again. I was trying to explain what code mixing is and the situation that gives rise to code mixing. And so I said that most African countries that have been colonized by either France or the French or British, that's the English-speaking people, you know, we were introduced to English language and French languages. So at least every indigene, every citizen of, let's say, Nigeria can speak at least two languages. That is the mother tongue, which is the first language For instance, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Efik, and so on, and then English language. So English language is the language of instruction, but we have other languages that we still use. And so code mixing arises where a speaker makes use of these two languages in a speech context. For instance, in the same sentence, one mentions English and another language. For example, when you go to the marketplace, it's very prevalent in the marketplace where most of the time you don't understand the other language, and the other person too does not understand your own language. So you maybe mention the money, the amount, or how much, and all that. So you see a lot of that played out in the market places. So when you blend those elements, from the different language, and it could even be dialects. We have different dialects. In English, we have Pidgin, and then we have the Queen's English. So when you blend the two in a conversation, you are said to be code mixing, to be engaged in the act of code mixing. So, for example, I tried as much as possible to get simple examples that we can relate with, that I can also say it, meaningfully. And so we have, if a Hausa, maybe you want to get something from a Hausa, or you are speaking with Hausa, or when you hear them speak, you see that they will use a term in Hausa and then end the sentence in English. So they understand it within themselves. For example, when you say Gaskia, I did not do it. That Gaskia is a Hausa word, meaning truly. Truly, I did not do it. So that use of Gaskia is code mixing, because that is Hausa language mixed with English language in the same conversation. Okay, then we have another example. It says, Walai, I did not see you. Walai. And if you interact with a lot of Malams, you hear them saying all those things. Walai, I did not see you. So that Walai means I swear, I did not see you. In a situation where somebody maybe claims the other person saw him or her, but refuses to greet the person. So this kind of discourse may arise out of that kind of a situation. Okay, so these are the two examples that I have from the Hausa language. So I am going to Igbo. So pardon me, Igbo speakers. I'm just trying to, give you some examples, even if I mispronounce the words. Okay, so we have, please mute your mics. Kelly, Kelvin, please mute your mic. So Igbo, they says, Biko, give him some money. Biko, nyem some money. So Biko and nyem is Igbo. But then you have some money, which is English language, meaning please give me some money. And you see a lot of Igbos doing that. In fact, I will say that among the three major tribes or major languages in Nigeria, Igbos and Yorubas, especially Igbos, they can code mix a lot. Go to the market, they are so fond of saying, Biko, do this thing for me, Then another example from Igbo language that I have here is we tell them biscuits abu. You see, we tell them biscuits abu, meaning bring that biscuit to me. So you see, a word like biscuits, how do we even have any equivalents for biscuits in African languages? Because wherever we are, when we want to refer to bread, we call it bread. Is it not so? And then we call it biscuits. We call it sweets. So these are words that have been, imbibed, and we all know what they mean when we say them. Okay, lastly, for the code mixing, I have some Yoruba examples. Okay, so for Yoruba and English code mix, we have Bawoni life, Diami. Bawoni life. Did I say it correctly? I have a Yoruba speaking.
No, you
okay,
didn't say it correctly,
meaning how is life, my dear? So you see,
life, Bawoni a year. That's the right pronunciation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right then. Okay. Then the next one, ebi pami, but I have
Even
nothing to
Pami, I'm
eat.
hungry.
Ebi
No,
pami,
that
I have
even
nothing
Pami
to,
is
but
not
I
I have
have
nothing
nothing
to
to
eat.
eat.
Even
Yeah.
Pami is I'm hungry.
Yes, I know. I'm coming to that, please. I know. But I don't have. So you can see the use of ebin pami, and then, but I don't have, but I have nothing to eat. So you see the mixture of English and Yoruba in that expression. So when you talk about code mixing, that is what it means, and you can bear me witness that you say that a lot on the bus, and on the bus, on the at the train station, in the marketplace, in school, among your friends, in the house, among your family members. So these are the examples I have of code mixing. So I want to believe that you all understand what code mixing is. So we are moving to the next one, which is code switching. So code switching is closely related. They are similar concepts. So one is mixing, one is switching. And what does it mean to switch? That is to say something and then switch to another. So it doesn't have to be in the same sentence. It may now be in the same discourse, but in a different sentence. So code switching is the switch from one language to another by a speaker in a single discourse. So this happens when speakers are proficient in both languages and understand the structures of these languages. And so they are able to switch seamlessly from one language to another and still maintaining, the desired structure. There's no distortion in the meaning of what they are trying to say. You know, you know that every language has its own sound system. It has its own semantics, syntax, and all these systems. They are different in all the languages. So for you to be able to code switch seamlessly, it means then that you understand both languages that you are speaking properly, and you know the right place to add or to switch from one to another. And so for instance, when a speaker makes a first utterance in a particular language, he may decide to make the next utterance in another language, provided the person he or she is speaking to understand perfectly what is communicated. Okay, so let me try to look at some examples again in Hausa and English. Okay, so number one, Naje gidan kajiya. I did not meet anybody. Naje gidanka jiya. I did not meet anybody. So naje gidanka jiya means I went to your house yesterday. I did not meet anybody. So you see, you see how the code has been switched from one to another. That is from Hausa to English. And then another example that I have here says, Bani de lafia. Bani de lafia. I can't come to school today. So Bani de lafia means I am sick or I don't feel well. I can't come to school today. So you see, there's a switch. This is a compound sentence. There's a switch. You can see that there's one statement and then there's another that follows. One is in a different language, the other is in another language. Okay, so let's go over to Igbo language. Igbo Kwenu. Okay, so the first one says, where is the seller? Nka egole. That's this. How much is this? So where is the seller? How much is it? So at least, even if you don't understand Igbo language, you've heard so many people in the marketplaces say, I mean, a number of times, egole, that means how much, or elo, eloni in Yoruba, At least these are the simple things that you want needs to know. As a good Nigerian, at least you need to know a lot. All of these basic things so that you'll be able to communicate wherever you are. So you can now see that where is the seller, how much is it? There is a switch from one to another. Okay, then Gini kai chere, I don't understand. So Gini kai chere means, what do you mean? I don't understand. So I believe these two examples are very clear, and I think I've tried. All right then, so for Yoruba and English, number one example that I have says, Mabinu Oremi, I had to spend the night there. So the translation says, I'm sorry, my friend, I had to spend the night there. So I believe that example is very clear. And the last one I have here says, I went there yesterday. Kosi woni be. Kosi woni be. Did I say it correctly? Kosi woni be. Okay. So
I went there
it says,
yesterday.
I
Could see
went there
money
yesterday.
there. They are
Huh?
not there.
They
Could
are
see
not there,
money there.
yes.
There
Kosi
yesterday,
woni
kò sí
be.
wọn
Okay, I
níbẹ̀,
got
kò
the
sí wọn.
pronounce. All right. Okay, so you can see that we all are engaged in this, and it's so sweet when we are able to speak and understand ourselves. And that's the beauty of language, when you can switch from one to another without, destroying the meaning.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Okay, my network. All right, okay. So now
Okay.
that we understand what code mixing and code switching is, I'm so sorry. Then let me do something. Oh, wow. Wow. Please give me a minute, please.
Okay, we are waiting.
Oh, please. Oh, I'm not seeing. I discovered that I've not been recording. Oh my God.
Sorry, Mrs. Agelaga, don't worry, I'm recording for you. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
just guessed
All
that
right.
you might be. So don't worry, that has been taken care of. Just continue.
Okay,
Mm,
okay. So sorry
uh,
about that. It just occurred to me that I didn't start the record. All right then.
all
Okay,
right.
so let's
All
continue.
right.
Okay. Mhm. Okay, so let's quickly look at the motivations for code mixing and code switching. You know that in life, there's always something that inspires something else. There's always a motivating factor for the kind of things that we engage in. Sometimes it's the situation we find ourselves that, warrant us doing certain things. And so we are looking at the motivations for code mixing. Why do we code mix? There must be reasons why we code mix. Okay, so code switching and code mixing is a functional, is a functionality that is motivated by, several reasons. There are several reasons that make people. So we have lack of equivalent words or phrases, in one's language. I was talking about biscuits, bread, sweets. These three particular words, you find it hard. I don't even know the name of biscuit in my own language. I don't know. And so when you want to refer to biscuits, you call it biscuits. And biscuits is not a Nigerian or African language. is English language, or cookies, you know. So when you cannot find an equivalent for the language that in the language that you want to say it, you may decide to use the word from the other language to subsidize or to, augment in the statement that you want to say. For example, even in brand of cars, you have Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes obviously is not a Nigerian name. You have Toyota. Toyota is not a Nigerian name. So when you are speaking Yoruba and you want to refer to a car, you must use Toyota, because there's no equivalent of Toyota in any of the Nigerian languages. So it's one of the factors that make people to use when there is no equivalent. Lately people have been trying to find words that explain certain words even in our Nigerian languages. Words like akara, you're trying to find an English equivalent, and then they will say it's either being cake or being whatever. And then some people will argue and say, well, if you cannot find a word like biscuit in Yoruba, why try to fit in? Why must akara also have an English name? Why can't you just use our akara? Because we all know what akara is. So there are certain words like that that is so difficult. Sometimes when you try to force it, you may use a sentence to explain instead of just finding a terminology that suits the occasion or that explain what you want to say. And then when you talk of words that have to do with money, words that like thousands, million. Do we have an equivalent of million in Yoruba? I'm not sure. Abi, do we have? We don't have naira. We don't have 1,000. We say 1,000. We may say it in our own dialect, 1,000 or whatever, but it's still a derivative from the English language. It's not a Yoruba word. Okay, so we said the first reason why people engage, or motivations for engaging in code mixing and code switching, is when there's a lack of equivalent word or phrase in one of the languages. And then the second one, we use it to reinforce a request. So how do you use a word to reinforce a request? There are certain times that you are speaking to someone and you are trying to communicate, to say something, but you say it in English, but you feel if I say it in Yoruba, it will drive home more. It will drive the points home more. And so you say it in Yoruba, because when you say that, you feel that the meaning is better explained that way than trying to use English language. And we find out that a lot of politicians use that a lot, especially when they are seeking for mandate. You see that Emilokon came in as a result of this code switching, code switching, code mixing. Because when you say Emilokon, you understand, you don't need to, it carries more weight than when you try to say it in the English language. And a lot of people have used that slogan now, Emilokon, and it has come to stay. All right, so let's move to another one. I believe you are following.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We tend to use that a lot. Okay. Number 3 says to exclude other listeners from the discourse or from the conversation. There are certain times you are saying something sensitive and you don't want another person to hear. So instead of saying it in English, you decide to go to your dialect, or you use slangs. You say it in such a way, in a coded language, that the other person does not understand, because there's a secrecy that you want to preserve, there's a privacy you want to sustain. For example, even in the home, when someone comes around and Hello? It seems my
Hello, we are with you.
network is not
Go on.
stable. Okay.
Go on.
Okay, so the
Listening.
third one,
We
I
are paying
said that
attention.
we use it to exclude others from a conversation, especially when you want privacy. The speaker does not want every other person to hear what they're trying to say. So you can switch to your dialect or to any of the codes that only the two people in the conversation understand, so that the secrecy can be preserved. Then number 4, we use code mixing to enhance friendship and relations. We use it for bonding, the enhancement of relationship and relational bonding. So we use code mixing to, create friendship and to maintain such friendships. For example, you know that our language is our identity. You go to a strange land and you hear someone speak your language where you are surprised that someone else is speaking your language in that place. You gravitate naturally towards that person. And so it helps to create relationships and to also help us to maintain such relationship, because language helps us to communicate a common identity that we have as speakers of a given language. And then it also helps us to have a sense of solidarity. This is my own person, this is my brother, this is my sister, because we speak the same language, or we understand each other. We have especially even in a learned environment, if you go to a place, someone is learned, you gravitate towards that person because the person understands you better than the one that is not learned. So that is part of what code mixing helps us to achieve. And then number 5, code mixing and code switching helps us to create humor. So when you talk of humor, you are talking about entertainment. You're talking about using language to make people laugh, to lighten up their moods. And as Nigerians, we are so good at that, So it helps us to create humor. And this is used mostly among all these stand-up comedians, among people who present programs on television or on radios, So they use that. There's a kind of a flavor it adds to what the person is trying to communicate. There's a flavor that it adds. Sometimes you're trying to mimic someone and you can't do it better when you try to explain that in another language. So you have to use the language to drive home your point. So it's used for humor. And lastly, we use code mixing and code switching to enhance our self-image. Most people use this to show off. You're among your friends and you can speak more languages than they do. So you just say it, to show that you are, somewhere, so that to make you feel that you have achieved something. You can speak different languages. And it's a great achievement for people to be able to converse in different languages. So people try to use that as kind of hello? As show off,
Ma, please,
show
what do you
off.
say is the last one?
Hello?
I didn't get it for the last one. The last one.
Okay, the last one says is used for self-image enhancement.
Ma, I didn't get it for the last one. The last one.
The last one, creation of humor. Is it that one? Number 5. Okay, number 5, I said that we use code mixing and code switching to create humor. Humor. That is to entertain people, to make people laugh. And mostly people who are engaged in stand-up comedies, they use it so much in Nigeria when they try to mimic people. So they try to use the language the person used. So if it's Yoruba, they will say it in Yoruba, the way that the person says it. And that helps to create humor. But if they try to use it to mimic such a person in a different language, it will not be as funny as it is if they use the original language. And that may also lead to code mixing or code switching. And then lastly, number 6, I said that code mixing and code switching enhances self-image. Self-image enhancement. So I believe you've gotten that now. So when you talk of self-image enhancement, it means using language, flaunting your language, showing off the languages that you know among friends, among your peers. You notice a lot of people when they travel to US and they come back, their language change. Whether they are faking it or not, they try to speak like Oyibo to show that I have been to. So that also is part of the reason why people code mix and code switch. And please, if you have any question to ask, please don't interrupt. You can note it down, and then when it's time for questions,